Welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Hello, welcome to the Emergency Traffic Podcast, where we talk about firefighter and paramedic line of duty deaths to learn from these tragic events and potentially prevent them from happening in the future. I'm your host, Paul, and I have my co-hosts again today, Dirk and Doug, joining us on this podcast for August, where we're talking about apparatus incidents and wildland incidents relating to, of course, it's wildland season, so it's a good time to talk about that. Hello, Doug and Dirk. What's new?
Yeah, well, it's always weird when we do these two back to back because nothing's new from an hour ago when you asked me. But yeah, I'm still looking forward to going to practice on Friday, and I'm still watching the NHL free agent on the TV here. But yeah, things are. Something I didn't mention is I started reading a new book about the Deutsche Bank fire in New York City that we might talk about one day. So I'm looking forward to getting to that more and. Yeah, that's about it. I'm kind of enjoying being at home alone right now with my family visiting the in-laws. Got the whole house to myself. Don't worry, she doesn't listen, so we're okay.
I was going to say, I hope she doesn't listen to the podcast because you're going to get in trouble.
She's not that interested in firefighting, so she doesn't listen to it unless we're in the car together. So I'll make sure we don't listen to this one together.
Yeah, I'd like to read that Deutsche Bank fire too. I should get that book. That would be very interesting.
Well, I'm sure I know a guy that can lend it to you when he's done.
You have the physical book, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. And on the big draft day or whatever. So what happens? What's changing?
No, just the contracts. Whoever's contract expired this year is over, so it's the day that players can. It's so. I mean, you should know this. You're Canadian. You should know how the NHL works. It's they get to go sign their big new contracts with new teams if they so choose. So
they're all American anyway.
You gotta watch it. Well, the teams are, but my team's not. So, anyways, you watch it, see who's going where, who's leaving where. So the Oilers have re-signed who they wanted to re-sign and picked up a new goalie, and
they get to keep their only player, McDavid or whatever his name is.
Yeah. Well, he's signed up for a lot of years. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, you're retired now. When he signed his contract, you might be dead when it's done. He's signed up for a long
time. At how many million a year?
Dirk, what's new?
Dirk, he's out in the backyard. Looks like
I'm still I am sitting in the backyard because it's beautiful weather and gotta enjoy that. The magpies are quiet right now. They are a major problem right now. I actually heard today that Edmonton is the capital, the magpie capital of Canada. So that's something to be proud of.
Yay! Used to be the city of champions, but not anymore, right, Doug?
It used to be the city of broken windshields too.
Oh yeah, I suppose.
Anyhow, cool. Yeah. So as Doug said, nothing new, groundbreaking. Just looking into for our tailboard talk here about the intershoots. See if I can come up with a couple of topics that even Doug are interested in, and so looking forward to that one. I'm also looking forward to this one of like vehicle collisions, and those are, I think, one of the main causes for firefighter deaths next to heart attacks. But that'd be kind of boring talking about health and nutrition.
Right. Yeah. Well, maybe somewhere we should.
Maybe down the road. Yeah. Maybe down the road that would be something we can talk about. Yeah.
Talk about mental health, right? We're gonna do one of those tailboard talk.
Oh, it drives me crazy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, and continuing with the theme for August, we talked about apparatus incidents. Basically, the first couple were wildfire apparatus incidents that involved in tragic line of duty deaths and the lessons learned from those. This next one here is occurred in, again, 2001, so it's fairly old. So maybe our incidents are going down. I don't know. A 52-year-old male volunteer firefighter, the victim, died when he lost control of a tanker truck or tender. He was driving after a tire blew out. The fire department involved in this incident has one fire station, serves a population of about 4,500 people in a geographical area of about 20 square miles. The volunteer fire department is comprised of 36 volunteer firefighters. The truck involved in the incident was a 1973 cabover with an aluminum 3,000-gallon water tank. At the time of the incident, the water tank was empty. Gross vehicle weight of the truck was approximately 43,000 pounds, and the truck was equipped with a lap seat belt safety restraint system for the driver and passenger positions. Department firefighters conducted maintenance checks on the truck on a monthly basis and maintained written records. The department is exempt from the law for obtaining a yearly state vehicle inspection. A lot of departments try to exempt themselves from those inspections. In fact, the county that I was on, a fire department here, was trying to do that too. And I said, no, we should inspect them. No, they don't need it. It's just a fire truck. And I go, yes, it needs it more than anything. It sits on, it's always fully loaded, and when someone drives it, it's to the pedal, or the brakes are all the way to the, as far as you can slow the truck, the faster you can slow it down. It needs that visual look every year by somebody. And in fact, where I was deputy chief in Clearwater, I also did the NFPA 1911 driving tests. I had someone do that for each truck. Make sure the park brake holds. Make sure it doesn't pull to the right or left. We always found stuff when we did those. In this incident, the state of Oregon does not require a commercial driver's license, which is something you don't have here in Canada. It's a little bit different, but the CDL, which is required for any vehicle with over a certain weight, for persons operating emergency vehicles or fire apparatus. However, the victim did have a current CDL, commercial driver's license. The department does not have a written policy requiring the use of seatbelts. I know that's a pet peeve of ours. Definitely, seatbelts are primarily important, especially in emergency vehicles, because you're much more likely to be involved in an incident.
Why does a department need a written policy about using your seatbelt when the law already says you have to wear your seatbelt? It doesn't.
For some
Because
reason,
we are
many
above the law. We are
right
above the law, right?
many
Yeah.
firefighters or emergency personnel feel that they're above the law. Because you're driving with lights and siren, you're driving the wrong way down the road, you're parking in the middle of the street, therefore I can do what I want. And why should I have to come to a complete stop at a stoplight before I drive through it? Yeah, exactly. Even though it's red. That's why. The road that this truck was on was an interstate highway and is comprised of 2 eastbound, 2 westbound lanes. The surface of the highway is large, coarse pavement. Highway had fog edge lines, rumble strips, paved shoulders, and it was straight and level in the area of the collision. So obviously everything was good. It shouldn't have happened there. The road had a posted speed limit of 65 miles per hour for cars and 55 for trucks. The weather conditions on the day of the incident were clear and the highway was dry. The state requires all firefighters to complete training NFPA Level 1. The victim had completed Level 1 through the state. Within the past year, he also completed 31 years of various fire and rescue training courses. The department has written qualifications for becoming a driver. Before being eligible to be a driver, the firefighter must complete a 16-hour emergency response driving course and demonstrate driving skills to a department officer. They review driving skills quarterly and maintains training records. The victim had not completed the 16-hour response driving course. However, he had participated in 2 of the quarterly driving skill reviews. Because the victim had prior work experience with driving large vehicles, the department did not require the victim to attend the 16-hour emergency response driver course. The victim had 15 years of experience with the department, had left the department for a 10-year period. Yes, Doug?
I just wanted to touch on that. That's one of my pet peeves where you drive trucks for a living, so you don't have to take the emergency vehicle, whatever. And because on the volunteer departments I've been on, where there's always been the guy that, I'm a truck driver, I'm a farmer, I could drive this better than you can, blah blah blah. And I always said to them, like, sure, but you're not driving a fire truck. It's different. You're not driving. You might be the best truck driver, shifting gears, driving on the highway that ever lived, but you're not driving a fire truck. And it's different. And everybody should have to do that training before they drive a fire truck.
Yeah, fire trucks are loaded at 90 to 95% of their carrying capacity, if not more, unfortunately, at all times. And you're driving it under extreme conditions. Get there as fast as you can, stop as soon as you can. Oops, there's the turn off.
I agree. And a big part of driving emergency vehicles is not even the physical driving of it, it's the mental. I'm driving a fire truck and worrying about everybody else on the road where they react differently to a fire truck.
So what happened is the investigation revealed that the victim was driving a tanker truck back to the fire station from a garage where it had been taken to have the tank pump capped. I'm not really sure what that is, but anyway, the garage was approximately 70 miles from the fire station. At approximately 10 to 12, the truck was traveling eastbound on the interstate, and approximately an hour later, the victim maneuvered the tanker to pass a tractor trailer. The truck moved into the passing lane and overtook the tractor trailer. As the victim began to maneuver the truck back to its previous lane, the right front tire ruptured, resulting in a complete blowout. Post-crash examination by state police and a crash reconstructionist determined the tire was a 1979 model, so the tire was 22 years old, and that the outer shell fragment of the tire revealed brittle and obviously aged material. The truck traveled approximately 200 feet on the eastbound side of the highway and shoulder and continued traveling approximately 335 more feet in a southeast direction onto a grassy area. The corner of the left front bumper and the tire struck a boulder that was approximately 8 feet wide and 4 feet high. The truck overrode the boulder, struck a tree that was approximately 18 inches in diameter. The truck came to rest facing the southeast in full contact with the tree and the right front corner resting against the stump. The truck sustained heavy damage to the left front of the cab. At approximately 12:50, mutual aid department and 2 ambulances were dispatched to the incident. Civilian emergency medical technician and a physician witnessed the incident and found the victim lying sideways on the seat. State police report indicated the victim was not wearing his seatbelt. Due to the significant intrusion into the instrument panel, the lower extremities were entrapped. Civilians were unable to find the victim's pulse and began resuscitation efforts until ambulances arrived. Engine responded with an assistant chief driving and 2 firefighters. Ambulance arrived. The crew took over resuscitation. Engine and the assistant chief assumed a role of command. Firefighters from the engine used cutters, powered hydraulic tools, and a reciprocating saw on the driver's side door. A second ambulance arrived. They placed heart monitors on the victim. No pulse, no electrical activity. Ambulance called the hospital, received order to discontinue life support, and pronounced dead. The fire chief came to the scene. Tow truck arrived to assist extricating the vehicle, the person from the vehicle, and pronounced dead. Fire department's recommendations were comprehensive apparatus maintenance programs in addition with manufacturer specifications and instructions that include regularly scheduled inspections, documentation, and procedures for removing apparatus out of service until major defects are repaired. It didn't actually talk about any major defects on this. They see, except for the tire, they experienced a blowout in a depleted condition, so the tire was low when it blew out. The department in this incident uses a checklist to perform weekly visual inspections on department vehicles. However, no procedures were in place on how to identify and remove an apparatus from service until major defects can be rectified or repaired. The tire was a 79 model. The post-crash examination revealed the outer shell was brittle, cracked. In addition, pieces of steel cords showed signs of rust from years of moisture exposure due to openings in the tread from the cracks. This is a pet peeve of mine. Old tires on fire apparatus, NFPA, which many people say it's not a rule, it's just NFPA. But they recommend no longer than 7 years in service on fire apparatus tires. Fire apparatus tires are, even a lot of people say, well, they're always inside, they don't get hot, they're not exposed to the sun. the problem with fire apparatus tires is, number one, they're always fully loaded. Number two, they often reach excessive speeds and excessive cornering and braking, and the moisture affects the tires from coming in and out of the station all the time. The change in temperature from inside to outside, and the high humidity in many stations due to washing apparatus and stuff like that. It's very hard on tires. I know one department was a rural department that I was on. I managed to convince them that 10 years at least was a good number. I just had a discussion with someone on social media, a couple that I know, a firefighter retired a couple of days ago, about. That's the one thing I don't agree with NFPA. Fire truck tires, 7 years is crazy. It's undue expense on the municipality. We had a tire in a fire truck in the station blow. Was only 7 years old, or so. It was 8 years old. So I don't know what your guys' thoughts are, but tire, and I know one of the companies where I lived, a big petrochemical company, they had a tire blow on the way to the training school in Vermilion. Front tire, fortunately, didn't result in any injuries. What do you guys think?
We have well, we have our mechanics, which is great, but every driver's responsibility is to visually inspect the tires for cracks, just obvious stuff, right? Um, Air pressure get checked on a regular basis. We do have mechanics coming out all the time to repair tires, and we have a contractor that comes out and does the well, the more labor intense stuff like switching out a tire, switching out a stem. Um, it's something I would expect from most departments. Again, the volunteer side probably a little bit different. I'm not sure about how often they switch out the tires, but you will see cracks. You will see like a brittle tire is pretty obvious, and this thing was damn old. So it's kind of negligent from the fire department to have those old tires on there. And I don't know, 7 years, 10 years, they should be at least a regular check. And for somebody that drives trucks, they should do the same. I mean, there's the Canadian Traffic Safety Act. I'm not sure what they say about tires, so that'd be something Paul would probably know.
I think the tire shops are saying 5 years.
Yeah, because the
Yeah, but
tire shops want you to buy new tires.
I was just gonna say they make the money.
Like, to be honest, I've never ever I guess I've taken for granted the age of a tire on a fire truck. I've never checked it or thought about it. I remember the apartment you're talking about where we had to convince all these farmers on the county council that we needed to. I mean, they think that just because their grain truck has a 12-year-old tire, no big deal. But
Right.
I mean, it's a battle you fought. I didn't have a dog in the fight, I guess. I never really thought about it or considered it or whatever. But I I can see. I don't know anything about tires. I don't know if a 5 year or 7 year or 10 year tire is that much different from each other. But I definitely can see the administrative side of things, especially if you're getting into a more rural, less busy fire department where they're like, we're buying these damn tires and we're putting no miles on them, and what's the big deal? And that's where it's the fire chief's job or the deputy fire chief's job to convince them what the big deal is and why they need to do it. But it's
Yeah.
but I mean that's part of the problem is when if you just say, well, the tire manufacturer says we should, the automatic response is going to be like, well, yeah, the tire manufacturer wants you to buy a new tire. So and there probably is some truth to that. What number one is they want to cover their own ass where they don't get sued, where they just say it's like a best before date, right? Well, so when food reaches a best before date, it doesn't automatically spoil. It's just best before that day, right? I mean, we've all had milk that's a couple days past the best before date, and we all live to tell about it. So it's a little take it with a grain of salt what a salesman's trying to tell you, right, Paul?
Which is why NFPA says in 1911, which is the maintenance standard, that tires should not be any longer than 7 years old, because they did extensive studies and surveys of the life of fire apparatus tires, and they found that was sort of the magic number. I know in the city that I was last working, When I started there, the 19, I don't know, 90 whatever cab over Superior Volvo third out truck had the original tires on it. And this was in 2017. And I said, like, these tires got to go. And I was trying to justify it to the chief. I was a deputy. And he's like, well, maybe the city will take them. Like, we got to get some resale out of these tires. Like, they're like new. And I phoned up the city shop and said, hey, do you want these tires? And they said, are you kidding? I wouldn't put them on a gravel truck. They're old. They're done. And it's like,
But have at
okay,
her. Put them on your fire truck. That's
yeah,
you
yeah.
don't want to
So,
put on a gravel truck.
and of course, when there's a wildfire in Fort McMurray or wherever, which truck do you send? You send
No,
the third out. And so these guys are driving in the summer at 100 kilometers or 60 miles an hour on 20-year-old tires. Every time the thing went to a training, even to training in Vermilion or wherever, I was having kittens because these tires shouldn't be on the road. And sure enough, about a year later, one of the tires that was only 8 years old or 9 years old blew right in the station. We're sitting there in the lunch in the kitchen or something, all of a sudden bang, and the tire's flat. So yeah, I mean these are dangers that you talk to any RVers how old their tires are in their RVs, and you'll find that they typically don't run them very long because they're worried about a blowout and damaging their RVs. So you know, and you get fire departments. You know, what does your truck weigh? Is it overweight? And you get fire departments that go, well, we don't have to worry about that, right? It's just a fire truck. So yeah, it's my pet peeve, and you know that already. And checking the tires, vehicle checks. We remember the fire department I was on got in trouble. You weren't supposed to wash your cars in the fire station, And one day a captain was in the fire station washing his car, and he looks at the apparatus and goes, "Wow, that tire looks low." And sure enough, the inside tire was flat. Uh, thank goodness the truck didn't go on a run with a flat inside dual out in the country in the summertime, because definitely that could have been another accident, right?
well,
So it
I
was
was doing truck checks at work one day, and I was crouching down, draining the air brakes, pulling the cord, and I looked at the tire. I hadn't got to the check the tires part of the check yet. I just looked over, and I said that doesn't look right. And the outside dual was flat
mhm.
and not seated up against the rim properly, but it wasn't like a flat tire where the bottom of the tire's flat
No,
because the inside dual's holding it up, right?
right, you
Unless
can't
you do
tell,
your actual check, you don't know. Like
which is
it,
why
I'm thankful that it caught my eye because I went over to the captain and I said, "Cap, we're out of service," and he said, "Why?" And I said, "Because we have a flat tire that." And who knows when it went flat or if it had been driven on. I
right.
hadn't driven on it that morning, but I don't know how long it was flat for. But
Right. I mean, that's why all new passenger cars come with tire pressure sensors, is because the Highway Traffic Safety Administration thought it was a big enough problem and killing enough people that you should have a warning if you have low tires, right? And that's why all the new fire trucks have a pressure indicator on the valve stem, although they're problematic. They're all new fire apparatus are supposed to have a pressure indicator on the valve stem of the tire that shows green or red if it's out of its pressure range, so that you can visually, because it's so hard on a dual truck tire to tell if it's low, and they're
Right.
hard to
My
check with a
my
gauge.
experience with old tires is basically coming from a motorcycle, from riding motorbikes. Um, I mean, I rode enough so that the age was never a problem. It was just the tread was down.
Wear them out,
but
yeah.
but I got to buy some old motorbikes, and you notice if the tire was old, it looked like the tread looked perfect, but it was like 20 years old, and you're riding it, and it felt like you're riding on rocks,
Right.
and because it's so hot and out, right? And then any kind of moisture, oh, you were sliding around like hell. So just imagine that on the fire truck. There's no grip, no nothing. There's no wet weather grip. Yeah, that could be super dangerous. And now, just reading up on the Canadian Traffic Act, um, there isn't really a timeline. I think most of the time they go through inspection, but all the recommendations is between 5 and 10 years
Yeah.
for tires, right? So
Yeah. Yeah, and and it says here also in the recommendations about driver training, which is that 16-hour course, because they should get trained because it's the defensive driving technique. Anybody can drive and get there safely and like you said before, Doug. But I remember you and I don't know if you took it with me. We took the NAPD, or I don't know what they call it anymore, but the defense emergency vehicle driving courses, and they teach you a little bit about how to react. Don't oversteer, don't hit the brakes, all that kind of stuff, which maybe could have helped this fellow. Don't know, but it's important that. And I used to try to get all our firefighters to take it, and they all would come back from the course and say, "That was a great course. I'd like to
Well,
do
that
that
was so much
again."
fun. We got to slam the brakes on and swerve
Right,
and play
right.
around in the parking lot, right? And we're the worst thing that happened. Well, not the worst thing, but you're gonna hit a pylon. Big deal, right? Like
Yep.
you're not gonna
Yeah.
hit
I
Martha
I
crossing the street.
There
I,
could be people at your wedding.
I took
They're
it.
cones.
Yeah, I took it. I took it here in Lacombe years ago, and I know it saved me with my personal vehicle. I hit a patch of ice down south of Cranbrook one day, and was sliding all over the road. But the techniques to maintain control helped me to not have an accident and end up, in the ditch. I'm sure they did. So I agree with that as well. So very important to take that driver training for all your operators
Paul,
and maintain your trucks.
I like how every time you bring up a standard or something, we talked about NFPA, whatever, and you turned around and found it on your bookshelf, and then Dirk brought up the Highway Traffic Act, and you spun around and looked for it on your bookshelf. It's like you got the whole library of NFPA behind you.
I got a whole bunch of them in my computer too, but I like the paper one, and I'll go and look for because as a fire chief, these are my guiding documents. That's, people whine about NFPA and stuff, but there's nothing else but NFPA, ULC, Highway Traffic Act, those kind of things.
Well, and
Nationals.
oftentimes the language that the people that have the deputy city manager or whatever titles, they speak in reports and academics and stats and not just like, well, Paul thinks, because Paul
Right,
can say, well,
right. You
this has
gotta,
been studied. Like it's not my idea. It's
right,
the way it should be. It
right.
says so here. And if you choose not to follow what this says, get a good lawyer, because the bad lawyer is just going to say, well, why didn't you follow what it already says?
Hmm.
Industry's best practice, right? That's what NFPA is basically. It's industry's
Minimum standard.
minimum standard. Yeah.
Minimum
And
standard.
if you don't follow that, you're right, Doug. Then see you in
And
court.
it,
And
I mean, it kind of covers your own ass as the chief if there was an accident and something went wrong, and you could go back and say, well, I told you 10 times we need new tires, and you didn't listen to me, and now the tire blew out. Where
Right.
and my data that said we need new tires is written down right here, and you chose not to give me the money to follow that. That's not
see,
my problem. That's your problem.
yeah,
Like I,
I'd be interested. I'd be interested in like the follow up on this because guarantee there was a legal follow up to this accident because somebody lost their life,
right.
right? That would have been interesting to see like who was made responsible, just the consequences for that department and for whoever made the decision to not look at the tires, right?
Right,
That'd
right,
be
yeah,
something
and
interesting.
the truck checks and all that kind of stuff. But I mean,
Yeah.
it was on social media recently talking about, that's the chief's jobs, and we have to keep asking for the staffing and the equipment and all the stuff. We're gambling with our firefighters and our citizens' lives by not providing adequate fire protection, prevention, training, response.
Well,
Uh,
look at Cal. I mean, we're going off on a tangent here, but
yeah,
look at Calgary with their staffing. Their
yeah.
their union social media once a week is saying our ladder trucks or aerials have 2 on them, and Vancouver and Edmonton and Toronto and the rest of Canada have 4. So why does our city not want to spend the money to have the same protection the rest of Canada does? And then
Right,
the Chiefs finally got on board with council or whatever, and now they're asking to double their budget so they can get up to the minimum standard. because they
Yep.
finally accepted that they're below the minimum standard, and that's a problem. I mean, if you have citizens dying or firefighters dying in fires, and you're saying, well, why did only 2 people show up? It says that we should have 4. Especially when you start thinking about 2 in and 2 out and all that kind of stuff. You need the right staffing and you need the right tires, as we're talking about here.
So, Paul, as a chief, I'm not sure if smaller towns have legal departments. I know the big cities have legal departments. Would you use them to make a political argument for whatever standard you want to push for? Would you go there and sit down with them and say, listen, this is what NFPA says. We don't follow this and this. Could you help me making my point at city council, town hall meetings?
Yeah, I mean, littler, smaller communities typically uh, have lawyers on contract through their association, and I have been involved in, you know, working with them to help back up a position that we're taking, that kind of stuff, and that's fairly common. Although typically the fire chief that rattles too many chains within the municipality doesn't work there very long anymore. Fire chiefs are like hockey coaches, is the popular saying, and therefore, you know, if you're causing too much trouble, then they'll usually get someone different. So, which has been happens sometimes, but sometimes not. Sometimes fire chiefs are very good at eloquent and long lasting and can push through what they need to do.
Okay.
And you could do that, get legal or get someone the safety. So usually the safety people are a big one to get on side, because the municipality doesn't want to, or company doesn't want to get on the wrong side of occupational health and safety, like the Yellowknife example, we had, or others where procedures may not have been training, procedures, equipment, whatever, could be a problem. So
Yeah, there's a big push for more safety and fleet safety. I think becomes more and more important, and they have a lot of leverage nowadays.
right,
I know that in our department that there is a push to more driver training, regular training. Um, the problem that we have is we have so many drivers, and I think they wanted an annual retesting, and that would take up so much training time, so much cost that again we asked for a exemption during every I think 3 years now. But at least there's a push, and it's coming from fleet safety, which is great because then chiefs or yeah, the chiefs could argue, hey, this is not we don't make this stuff up to get more funding or better fire trucks. Fleet safety is demanding this, and this is what we need. So that's actually a good thing when other departments support you. And when it comes to safety, apparently that's important.
absolutely. Okay, guys. Well, another good discussion about apparatus incidents, which was the theme for this month. Thanks everybody for your input. Any last words? Anybody?
Buckle up.
Right on, Doug.
Well, nothing I can say beats what Dirk said. So
Exactly. Okay. Thanks a lot, everyone, for listening to another episode of the Emergency Traffic Podcast. Reach out to us on social media or email, and we'll look forward to producing some more episodes for you soon.